Another close call between commercial airliners at a major U.S. airport under federal investigation, this time in Burbank, California. The NTSB says the crew of a Mesa Airlines flight had to abort their landing right as a SkyWest flight was taking off from the same runway. And you can hear the confusion on this air traffic control recording. Listen.
Air Shuttle 5826, affirmative, runway 33, clear to land.
You up the runway yet?
No, we're going around.
This comes just a few weeks after an incident in Honolulu where a United Airlines 777 jet crossed the runway as a smaller cargo plane was landing. And days before that, an American Airlines flight at JFK crossed in front of a Delta plane trying to take off. And then there was another incident. A near miss in Austin, Texas, where a FedEx plane almost landed on top of a Southwest Airlines flight. David Suchi is a former FAA safety inspector and a CNN safety analyst. David, good to see you. So, obviously a lot of people are very concerned, but how concerning is this for you that there would be 4 close calls in such a short amount of time?
It's very concerning, Fred. Usually over the year we may have 3 or 4 incidents at individual airports across the United States, but this is a lot of incidents in a very short amount of time. And especially because there's in the middle of what we call the Runway Incursion Mitigation Act. So there's things going on right now to try to improve the runways. They're looking at the geometry and can you see what's going on outside? But I think one of the things that is less looked at is how much the air traffic controller themselves is seeing or looking at what's going on the field. A lot of times they don't have a visual access to what they see on the runway or what they don't before they give approval to land on the airport.
So does that mean that the airways are just too crowded right now?
Well, it's certainly a factor. There's more and more air traffic, as you know, and every flight I've been on lately has been packed. There as many as they can get in the air, they do. So that certainly is a factor in how this goes on. I am concerned about it, and I think that not only the NTSB is looking into this, but the FAA has their own division that's responsible for overseeing air traffic, and that's within the Flight Standards Division. So it concerns me that the oversight agency is within the same FAA that's doing the air traffic, and there's a level of that, but there needs to be an external look at this, and not just an individual one like the NTSB is doing, but an oversight group that's active in participating in these types of events.
So while the FAA is, conducting this sweeping review of its safety practices, what are the things that they can zero in on? Because if one of the obvious, contributors here is what you just said, that, planes are packed, people are flying more, there are more planes in the air. I mean, what are the other things that they would be zeroing in on to investigate how to avoid all these near misses and close calls?
Well, there's 2 different aspects of it. One is the proximate cause, the last thing that could prevent it before it happened. And of course, that is the pilot. And if you notice in each of these, the pilot is a critical factor in avoiding these types of situations. So it's not to be said lightly, the fact that the pilots are responsible too to make sure that the runway is clear before they land on it. So that is the part that gives me safety and solace, is the fact that the pilots are the last ones that look down and say, hey, is there a runway or is there an airplane on there? And they're doing a good job of that. The reason that it concerns me is why should it get down to the pilot staff to make that? So when you're looking at the investigation, you have to look beyond that proximate cause and look at the latent causes, the things that happened before. Example would be how quickly they allow those airplanes to get dispatched, how quickly the runways are taking off. And just because the air traffic is higher, you have to slow things down a little bit and quit letting the airplanes get onto the runway before they're ready. And I think that's the first thing that needs to be looked at to mitigate this problem.
And we also know that the airlines were deeply impacted by the pandemic. Some have struggled with staffing, flight cancellations, and sometimes that's still happening. Do you think that those are contributing factors too?
I don't see a direct correlation with that, Fred. I know that those are things that happened in the past, but I don't see any kind of shortcutting or anything that these financial strains may have put on the airlines causing this problem. I think it is truly a systemic issue. It has to do with the entire air system and the fact that we're relying on the proximate mitigation, the last person that can stop it to happen, there needs to be safety up the line. And I think that has to do with the system and not necessarily anything to do with the airlines or how they're doing their operations.
All right, David Susi, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred.